Welcome everyone to this very exciting event, Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022, with sort of a joint effort of Research Administration and ACERT. And we have Julie here, our director of ACERT. So welcome, and thank you, Julie, for all the great programming that you do all year. And this event actually was conceived of by our wonderful colleague, Jody Polleck, who's one of our presenters today, a faculty member in the School of Ed, who not that long ago was in Amsterdam for her Fulbright and is such a great colleague and wanted to share a little more about her experiences and the application process. And we thought this would be like a great forum for this event. And so she got Terrie involved, and then we actually had to do a little bit of digging, and Julie was instrumental in that, to kind of find our past Fulbrighters at Hunter. And Bob Buckley helped us, I would say, the most. So thank you, Bob, at directing us. And it's a good reminder, you know, that this should be more accessible for everyone. We want to be able to not only just really celebrate and elevate all of our amazing Fulbrighters, but also be able to make it easier for more of us to participate in this program. And I had a personal goal because I have applied 3 times. I have never been picked for a Fulbright. So yeah, so maybe your good luck is going to rub off on me somehow today. So I'm super interested personally as well. That's always a good motivator to organize an event, so you can learn from people. So very quickly, I'm just going to share my screen for a second, just to review our panelists for today, and they are going to go in the order that we see here on the slide. So Spiro is going to go first, then Jody, then Anita, then Terrie, then Marnia, and then Jill. And they've been told they're very limited to a quick 4 minutes or so overview of their project, you know, their field, where they are at Hunter, the project that they, you know, applied for, where they went, maybe something they want to share about their experience, but they're also going to give us a little bit of a feel of an idea of applying, you know, maybe something to keep in mind. Some of them have served as reviewers now as well for the Fulbright panel. So they might have a tip or idea. So you should definitely have your questions ready because I've made sure, hopefully they all know they're only talking 4 minutes or so, or I'll just hit mute and go to the next person. So they will be finished by about 4:30. And then we'll have some good time for conversation and chat and all of that. And maybe there'll be someone here, a colleague. It was kind of interesting because when we came in getting ready for you all, most of them have never met each other either. So this is really nice. And so a lot of us have not met you. So we're really, really grateful to all of you, our amazing Fulbrighters. We are so honored to work with people like you who have gotten this amazingly prestigious award. And I'm going to put into the chat something that I'm sure all of you already have or can access, but it is the Fulbright Scholars website with the 2023 competition. The applications are going to be due August 1st. So this is a great time to get this going. Although it's a crazy time of year, being at the end of almost our semester, but it's a great time to get ready for summer. And perhaps there'll be a colleague here that you want to follow up with. And I know as Hunter colleagues, they'll be more than happy to probably answer more questions afterwards, okay? So we are going to jump into it now, and I'm going to turn it over to Spiro, who is an awesome colleague that I haven't seen in years, but we did some scholarship of teaching and learning, I think is what we did, 10 years ago at least or something, but welcome Spiro, and take it away, and I will give you like a high sign when you have about a minute left.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much, Laura. So I'm going to get to the really important thing first, which is certainly from the standpoint of the sciences, and colleagues here will talk about their own fields, but in the sciences, the most important thing I found that the Fulbright considered most important was collaborations. You had to have a project already ongoing, not initiated when you start the Fulbright, but ongoing, and they wanted to see in your proposal that you would keep it going after the Fulbright is over. So in my case, the research had to do with the removal of toxic pollutants in drinking water using a sand-like substance that's very inexpensive, but also very selective. That had not been done before. Its selectivity to be able to remove, for example, a textile dye from water selectively with an inexpensive adsorbent, sponge-like material hadn't been done. So what happened was my friend from France came and visited me at Hunter, said, I've read your publications and you do work with organic polymers, things like polystyrene, but I had never worked with sand-like substances. Do you think you can reproduce what you do with the organic polymers on the sand-like substance? So I gave it a lot of thought, and eventually I emailed him and I said, yeah, I think it's possible. He then said, well, then let's start a program together, and I will send one of my students from France to you, and she can work with you for 6 months and see how it goes. She came for 6 months, we did the collaboration, we began it was very successful. Then he invited me to France, Albi, France, as it is a small town near Toulouse, to give a seminar. That went very well. And upon leaving, I said, well, you know, I'd really love to spend time here on a Fulbright. So why don't I apply for it? And you would write a letter of recommendation in keeping the research going, which he did. So I submitted it. And as it turns out, I submitted it twice then, because the first time it didn't go through. So Laura, take heart. You know, why they didn't accept it the first time, I have no earthly idea, because the second time I submitted it, it was very similar. It was the same kind of research. I don't know what I said differently, except to say, well, I really, really promised to learn French, which I didn't, but I promised. Well, I kind of did, all right? So it wasn't completely a broken promise, but I can certainly recommend that if you go to France, learn French ahead of time. It'll be far more rewarding for you. I came back after the Fulbright. I'm sorry. It was when I came back, I attended both French 102, well, the first year, the full semester, the first semester and second semester of French. It was just me and the 17-year-olds. They were wondering, what's this old guy doing in my class? But it was fun. I mean, it was just so exciting to learn French, to speak it, but I was a year too late. It was after the time was over. But I've since gone to France repeatedly. I've gone to the laboratory repeatedly, and it's just always a marvelous experience. I can now say I want 2 tickets for the train. I say it in French, they understand me, and I'm absolutely delighted then. So, well, that is basically my viewpoint. The advice that I give to those who are applying is what I said before: set the collaboration in motion before you apply, know what you're going to do, and then show them that you're going to be able to continue it when you get back. And well, the fellow in France, Albi, he is now here on his own Fulbright at Princeton. He just visited, came to my home 2 weeks ago. We had a marvelous lunch. we stay in contact and we're friends now, and it's really wonderful then. But keep the collaboration going, and most of you, not most of you, all of you are far smarter than I, and take the advice to enjoy while you are there. I focus too much on work. Don't do that then.
Very good.
Limit yourself to what you're going to do and enjoy where you are, whether it's Paris or Spain or whatever. Just enjoy the place that you are then. Enjoy your surroundings.
Thank you, Spiro. I'm gonna stop the clock there, and we'll come back. And that was a great start. I love that on so many levels. So I'm gonna turn it over to you now, Jody, to share. And you should be able to share a screen if you need to. Just let me know if you need help with that.
Well, you know me, I nerded out and created a presentation, but now I won't do that. But I
know
will.
You can. Yeah. Go ahead and share it.
I actually created for folks, because look, this is an amazing opportunity, and I just want you all to feel as supported as possible. So I actually created a folder for folks. One is, and I'm just sort of showing you everything. In that document will be just a really short, very short presentation of advice that I could probably share in 4 minutes. And then also in there, I included some documents that might be useful for you. So I included my project statement, my host letter of invitation, which is equally as important. They also require a bibliography and some sample syllabi. So I just put that in there because I think it's always nice to see samples, but just know that everybody is really, really different. Every country is different, and how they review is pretty different. So just quickly, I'm Jody Polleck, and I'm in the School of Education, and I run the literacy program there. And, the Fulbright for me, I think, is just a matter of luck. I went to a conference and met a scholar who was doing work in literacy in the Netherlands. And he was very interested in my studies. My studies were looking at using book clubs for young people to help with their literacy and social and emotional development. So Jürgen was very interested in replicating that work in Amsterdam, and he and his team replicated the work, and we did a pilot study together. So it wasn't as intensive as Spiro's collaboration, but he replicated. I helped them with that. We worked together long distance. And then I thought, let me apply for a Fulbright. And I asked him, and he said he was interested. And then we discussed, what were the needs within Amsterdam, and what were some of the projects that he had been working on that my agenda could also fit the needs of, his populations. So that was my particular study. And I'll just share some advice really quickly. And this is all in there for you in the folder. I'm a nerd, those of you who know me.
Thank you so much for that.
I think the big thing is making sure it's really important, as Spiro said, you have to find somebody who you're already working with. So it was nice that Jürgen and I were already working. So if you don't have that connection, try to find them at your conferences. I also have no shame in reaching out to random people and seeing when you have some overlap to build that relationship. And if you don't have that yet this year, then maybe that's something that you can build over the year. So by the time that you apply again in August, you'll have the opportunity to develop that relationship and have something that's more substantial. So it's really important that once you find that partner, to have a Zoom, well, back then we didn't have Zoom, but we just had a Skype conversation just to articulate your proposal, to make sure that it's viable. Because if it's not viable, then it's not going to fly when it comes to their reviewing of the proposal. And then just really getting advice from your partner about what the college and the particular city needs, so that it's aligning with your own research. So we planned this a year out in advance. We started, I think it was in 2016, our collaborations. And then I started working on my Fulbright application, I think in 2017. So it actually took me 2 years to put together. And so the main things that they're going to be looking for, sorry about all the text, this is the worst, but I did put this together pretty quickly, but you can read it later, is having a really strong project statement. Get this done first and early. Make sure that your work is compelling, like Spiro's. This is like something that was new. Nobody had been doing this. Clearly articulating your plan and explaining why this particular country, and then just selling yourself, spotlighting your research, spotlighting the collaborations. Make sure that your project statement, it has really robust research with clear objectives, clear data collection and analysis plans. And also for my country, they wanted 50% scholarship and 50% teaching. So I had to have a pretty intensive look at my teaching record as well. And then being able to show the recursive relationship. What are you going to bring back to the US from what you've learned, and what can you provide to the country that you're working with? So you really need to demonstrate that reciprocal relationship. And then send your statement to your partner and send it to other people's. Like Terrie read my statement and gave me amazing feedback. Terrie Epstein, who's going to be speaking, that helped me to get that Fulbright. So big kudos to her because that really helps in that feedback. Don't shake your head, Terrie. I see you there. The other thing is you'll provide a CV. Make sure your CV highlights the amazing research that you do that's going to be done in your host country. You have to include a bibliography, very straightforward. And then if you are teaching, sending them, I think it's a 10-page limit, but sample course syllabi, just excerpts of your syllabi that align with the teaching that you'll be doing in that country. So for me, I was going to be working with students who are struggling readers and writers. And so I had to show course syllabi that really demonstrated that I had expertise in there, because I think it was mostly my research project, but it was also the teaching. So making sure that you have really strong examples of that. And then the letter of invitation, I think, is just as important as your project statement, because you both need to have the same articulations of the research and the teaching expectations. So I sent my project statement to Jürgen. He read it, gave me feedback, and then I revised it. And this went back and forth for, within a year. And then that helped him to write his letter of recommendation or his letter of invitation so that they were seamless and polished and really sort of matched. And then I actually worked on his letter of invitation. So he would send me his letter of invitation, and then I would give him feedback and he would make revisions. And that really just helped to make sure that we were saying the same things and we were on the same path. So all of those documents are in that folder, and I'm happy to talk with any folks that want to speak to it. But like Spiro said, it's an incredible experience. Please don't give up. Please keep trying. It's worth every second. And also, like Spiro said, take advantage of not just the work, but travel. I think when I was out there, I went to maybe 8 different countries, and 3 of which were invitations from others. So like Norway and Belgium and Finland and Denmark. Once they know that you're out there, they'll then pay for you to go to their countries and present on your research, which is awesome. And then you can take these amazing trips all over, and the impact is really strong, which I think also helps for promotion and such. So do it, don't give up, and use the amazing people in this room to help you get there.
Thank you so much, Jody. The little emoticons aren't big enough for us. We're all putting claps and celebrations. And I did let Jody go over because she conceived of this whole event and she gave us this massive document. So I could not cut her off because we needed to hear from all of that. So thank you everyone for the flow of time. I'm going to jump over to you, Anita. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. I think I can go home after that. That was amazing. But what was interesting is I kind of went down like a memory hole because mine were actually a really long time ago. So I don't know if anything is still similar or different. So I actually got one. I was looking at, I don't remember the terminology, but I got one right as I graduated from my MFA. as kind of like a postgraduate kind of extension. And I went to Hong Kong, and then more recently, well, not recently, 2007, I got one to Brazil, and that was more traditionally like what Spiro and Jody were talking about. I had forgotten all the preparation that went into it. So first of all, I got a Learning with Technology grant at Hunter, and I developed a course. And then with that syllabus, I was like, oh, I would love to teach this and somewhere else. And I met I knew Ivana Bentis, who was the chair of the Department of Communication at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. And her students, and I also teach at the art department at Brooklyn College, so they're very conceptual. And so we had a lot of connections in terms of art and technology. And she worked in television, and I worked at Channel 13. And so we had a lot of connections. We wanted to, I told her about this class that I developed, and she thought, you know, it would be interesting for her students. And because it was, I was going to share my screen, but I'm not sure how to do that.
Down at the bottom, there's like a green.
Oh, share screen. Hey.
Yeah. Crazy.
Let me see. Yeah. Wow.
And then you just select the window that you want. So once you
I'm
hit
sorry,
that,
I'm usually in Blackboard, so this is.
Oh,
like,
yeah, no problem. And if
I
it's
might
something
show
you
you
want me to
something
share, you
odd.
can send me, Anita. I can share it too for you.
Well, it's not a big deal. I was just going to show
Okay.
one of my presentations that I showed
Okay.
in Rio, so I'm sure.
Okay.
So anyways, but I did, so part of my prep was the Teaching with Technology grant. I created a syllabus. I worked with Ivana, and then I also took a night class at the CUNY Graduate Center in Portuguese. And I had studied French before, so I knew just enough to be completely confused. And it was like, but you know, everyone is so kind and everyone is so nice, and most of the kids, you know, do speak English, and we also, you know, all spoke art. It was very visual, but I did translate all my materials into Portuguese. Which was fun, and I learned, you know, like phonetically, my lectures, so they could laugh at me, and it was a wonderful experience. And we continued also, you know, having shows and collaborations. So maybe I was thinking, you know, maybe that's the goal. I am not as systematic as Jody, so it was more like by chance that I feel like I kind of blundered into it, but it was a wonderful experience.
Oh, Anita, thank you. And it's great the range of your discipline areas to hear, you know, about the different kinds of possibilities within Fulbright. So thank you so much, Anita. I'm gonna jump back into education, but jump to another part of the world, which with Terrie. Wow, Terrie's really on it. Just unmute yourself and then you'll be like 150%. She's my chair, so I have to give her a hard time, everybody. Okay.
4 minutes. Okay,
Oh,
so
perfect.
I went to New Zealand in 2013. So just like Anita, things may have changed because I did not have a prior relationship with anybody. And I'll tell you how I got my host, but I didn't need one. And the other 5 or 6 people in New Zealand from other fields, I think they didn't have that either. So I don't know if that's changed or it's particular to New Zealand, but that's my experience. Oh, I'm not gonna remember. How do I move my slides? How do I
Well,
get to-
you could use you got to click on the actual PowerPoint part, like on your PowerPoint, and then it should be able to respond, or your arrow keys might work.
Sorry, everybody.
I gave you 150. I'm going to have to deduct a point now, Terrie.
Yes, And I'm so proud of myself for getting this far. Okay, I can just talk. Slide 1-4. Anyway, I can send these to people.
Yeah.
The other thing was getting a host, as everybody else has said. What I did, not so much for this, but I had Fulbright in mind. I actually hosted a small international conference. People paid their own way. There was no funding. But one thing that you have to your advantage that other scholars don't have is you're from New York City. I have never gone anywhere where everybody from any foreign country does not want to hang out with you and possibly get an invitation. And I feel, not just a Fulbright, it helped me get a host because he was interested in research and of course in coming to New York City. And so I had a conference and I approached this guy who came, and he was interested. He knew of my work. So that's how I got involved. Like everybody else, it was the best experience of my professional career, in part because you're treated with a respect that you're never treated with here in your own country or own institution. And it's nice. It's nice to feel valued. And like Spiro said, you get invited to a lot of stuff, both from Fulbright, like Jody said, and I got to go to Australia because Fulbright will pay for it. And people, I got to know people, and I got several invitations. Anyway, so I'm really sorry that my
You want to take a second and
so
maybe if you stop sharing, you'll be able to go back into your PowerPoint and then you can click
Right.
forward and then go back to share. It could be something like with that. It might help. No
Thank
worries.
Anyway, I can put these in the chat.
Yeah, sure. We can look at them there.
Not that much.
I'll-
And except how to get a host, which is yes, it's important, obviously, and where you show your interest. Oh, one more tip: not just show the reciprocal relationship between what you're going to do afterwards and how you're going to help the host country and how the host countries, how you're going to collaborate. You might suggest a collaboration with your host students and your students. And now that we have technology, simple to get a bunch of New Zealanders and a bunch of New York City kids, students, to have some sort of thing. Doesn't have to be during the Fulbright. We said we would do it when I came back to the States. And it's just another little, check off. Oh, nice idea. Not just the faculty, but the students are collaborating in a small way as well. Thank you.
That's a great idea. That's a really excellent, because, they look for like the follow-up back in your home campus. And especially now with Zoom, I mean, that's just brilliant. Okay, thank you so much, Terrie. And let's jump now from New Zealand to Algeria with Marnia. Welcome. Tell us what you'd like to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed the previous presentations tremendously. My case was a bit dramatic, and I'll get to that in a minute. I first applied and I got it, but then I had to have surgery. So I postponed it, but then I had to reply entirely as if this were a new thing. So this means that one has to take this application process very, very seriously and go exactly according to the rule. And this is why I appreciated Jody's advice, very, very much. Take it very, very seriously. My project was, at the time, I was interested, I still am, I was teaching in the master's program in sociology. I had created a three component track in development. to give students hands-on knowledge on development, because I had done consultancies for the United Nations Development Program, for the World Bank. So I had that experience, which I wanted to share with students who would be then, on the job market. So I created a syllabus on how to formulate a course on development, but geared towards peace. And I called it Development for Peace. And that's the syllabus I had sent, to Fulbright, and it was approved. So my project was to teach full-time, and I had chosen a city of about 1 million people on the coast in Western Algeria, because everybody flocks to Algiers. So I wanted to get off the beaten track and see, whether I could help raise the capacity of students and possibly the faculty in doing this kind of work. Now, why Algeria? Because I work on Algeria. I have published on Algeria, and Algeria was just coming out of a civil war, which had lasted 10 years. So it seemed like it was a perfect time to get people to move away from thinking about development as simply growth, but how to focus on social development so that people get more competent, if you will, in their capacity to actually engage with one another in a peaceful manner. So I got there. And I started, when I went to see the dean, to see what, how they would fit my course, they said, well, it would be better if you lectured, to us. So I did that, but then in the meantime, the English department learned that I was there and that I spoke English, and they wanted me to teach in their program. So I ended up lecturing there, and they were interested in feminist theory, and that's what I'm interested in too. So it was like a two-pronged, teaching. I was having a great time, and then something happened. There was a terrorist attack. In the south, in a gas oil field called Tiganturin. Not many people were killed. The attack, failed, but immediately the embassy decided to recall us. And so within 48 hours, we had to pack our things and be driven back, to Algiers. I mean, I say we because in the same city, because they discovered the city through me, they put in a gentleman who was teaching English as a foreign language. So he and his wife, we were put in a car, in a car, driven to the airport, and where would they take us in Algiers? They put us first in a high-class hotel. Then I ended up in the ambassador's residence because there was not enough room, and the hotel was very, very expensive. So that I would like to warn our students who will apply to brace for themselves. It may not happen, for the unexpected. And when the unexpected happens and you're uprooted like that after you had established new relationships, with local students and faculty, there is a sense of disorientation, a sense of loss, a sense of really uprooting. There was a woman who was teaching something in Algiers. She was crying because people felt they were going to die, when in fact, in Algiers, it was perfectly safe. So that can happen. So flexibility and patience and the ability to actually roll with the punches, because then we had to find new lodging because some of us lost their security in the place where we were. So new lodging, a new place, to teach if there was a need for it. I ended up in a research institute that focused on economics. So these are the things that happened. But just, as Spiro had mentioned, and the other speakers, throughout this whole thing, I was being invited to give talks in Algiers, in Oran, the capital in the West. I was also invited to attend the Fulbright conference in Cairo. So I was traveling, I was giving, papers, while at the same time trying to put the pieces together. And by the time we did that, of course, it was the end of the fellowship. So my advice to students is, in addition to expecting the unexpected and not panicking, it's to take this whole process very seriously and see it as a learning experience. Especially for those of you who would be teaching, it's such a tremendously important feeling to realize that we are actually contributing our knowledge to others. And as the ambassador said to us, I remember when we had the orientation session, you are the face of America. So you show a completely different face of the United States. And I agree with Terrie, when people think you're from New York, I'd like to talk to you. Students would like to, find ways of getting scholarships to study in the US. So it is really an exhilarating, feeling. And you also, in the process, you learn tremendously about, the local culture, the local ways of doing this. I knew because I'm from there, and I speak the languages, I speak Arabic, I speak French, but I could see that the man who was teaching English as a foreign language, he was a little bit lost. But you really, because it's such a completely different country and with a completely different history, it's not Morocco, it's not Egypt, it's something else. And it's a tremendously, important experience. I'm really glad that Fulbright is there, to allow students, to share in the world, the big wide world.
Thank you so much, Marnia. That was a very, we would probably just love to hear you talk for about an hour about at least. It's really lovely. No, it's wonderful to hear your story, and thank you. I want to make sure Jill has a chance. So Jill, give us your story.
All right. Hang on. All right. Can that be seen? All right. So
Yes.
my Fulbright experience was a little bit different. So I applied for a Fulbright Schumann scholarship, which is a European Union scholarship that allows you to be situated in different countries and do research across countries. I did this during my sabbatical. All of my colleagues who had done Fulbrights advised me not to apply for this one because there were only 2 Schumann's given each year. And there are many more Fulbrights available in other locations. And that's my suggestion to all of you as you're looking. You can also be strategic. There are certain countries that have a large number of research and teaching Fulbrights, and there are other countries that have smaller number. So mine ended up being a 6-month Fulbright in 3 countries. And I was also strategic in that I was studying something that was of significance in the European Union and continued to be emerging as a really critical subject. And that was migration and migrant governance and inclusion. So my award was, as I said, it was a Fulbright Schumann Award. Those are Fulbrights that ask that you focus on either a policy or an issue that crosses Europe or supranational issues that connect Europe and the US. This particular one is administered in Belgium, and the research can take place in 1 or more EU countries. I actually put my application together with the intention of studying in 3 countries, and after my application was accepted, they actually suggested that 3 countries over 6 months might be a little bit too much. I agreed, and so I ended up cutting it back to 2, but I did make site visits to a whole bunch of other places, and like my peers, I was invited to many different places as well. Beyond where I was in the UK, And in Ireland, I was also, the Fulbright Commission also brought me over to Belgium. And then I also gave talks in France and Sweden, and I was also invited to China as a result of this. Fulbright paid a monthly stipend, and they also paid a one-time allocation for travel. And that money was used for me not only to get to Europe, but then also to get me around Europe as well. Just to give you an example, the Schumann currently only gives 2 scholar awards. I'm not sure how many they give for student Fulbrights, but this is for faculty. And by comparison, in each of the countries that I had planned on visiting, there were 6 available in Ireland, there were 21 in the UK, and there were 6 in the Netherlands. So there were more had I chosen to go elsewhere. I'm not going to talk about all the details. This is just to give you a sense of what it was. I was studying migrant political participation. At the time, Dublin had been an emigration country. Ireland had been an emigration country. And of course, England and the Netherlands had been immigrant receiving countries. And so they offered a nice little comparison. These are actually snippets that I pulled out of my application. I emphasized in my application how it applied to the Europe of the moment. I emphasized in my application why a European Union Fulbright specifically was important for my research. And then I also explained why the specific cities that I was looking at were of particular relevance to my research. This is just, I thought we should have some pictures. The other nice aspect of Fulbright is that even when you're a part of the Fulbright that I was in 3 different countries, each country has its own seminar and its own orientation. And you get the opportunity at those events to meet the other scholars who are participating. So what you have here is sort of a picture on the left of my screen. You've got the cohort that I was with in Ireland, the group of senior scholars that I was with in the UK, and the group of scholars that I was with in Belgium. Right? So in each place, I picked up more and more connections. And at each orientation and seminar, I had amazing experiences. In the UK, they took us to Scotland, to the Scottish Parliament, and we visited a whole bunch of communities there. They also took us to, we had a full day of learning Gaelic, which is not easy. I'm not going to use any of the language they attempted to teach us, but there are Gaelic speaking regions in Ireland. Then in the case of Brussels, they brought us to the European Commission, and then across the European Union institutions, we visited NATO, the European Court of Justice, the European Commission. And then of course, in each city in Dublin, I conducted interviews and did research at municipal governments across. So there's obviously lots and lots of pictures. I got about 5,000 of them, but I think that's an important element. The challenge, you've already heard, you need a host institution. I'm fortunate, I'm a comparativist. I've been working with scholars across the world for many years. So when it came to choosing institutions, I just reached out to people at in some of the countries I was interested in. No one said no. Everyone was supportive. So I think, as others pointed out, sometimes you know people, sometimes you don't. I knew people at Westminster and University College Dublin. They were very welcoming. I didn't know anyone at University of Gothenburg, but they were also welcoming, and they invited me and brought me over to give a lecture on the things that I was studying. The other challenge with a Fulbright Schumann is you have to find your own accommodation. Most of your host institutions will offer you the opportunity to be like a study abroad student. So you can live on campus. If you don't have connections and you want to be rooted, that's a good place to go. For myself, my research was taking place in the urban core, so I felt it was much more important that I was actually out in the cities that I was studying. Sabbaticalhomes.com is how I found my accommodation in London. I had a great apartment with my own terrace. It was fantastic. In Ireland, I found an apartment through Daft, which is another sharing website where you can find your own accommodation. But both of these campuses also offered me links and opportunities to study on campus and to have space there. But I really wanted my own kitchen and my own space to come and go and not really to have to think too much about anyone else. I was selfish once I got there. It was great. I had an amazing experience. If you're interested in sort of seeing a little bit more about the Schumann experience, I posted a link to a YouTube video. in the chat area, which kind of gives you an example of what it was all about. It was the best experience of my academic life. It's led to multiple publications, multiple visits. I've subsequently been, sorry, I'm trying to stop sharing, been able to visit other countries. As I said, it's led to other research over time and new experiences. And wow, I would highly recommend it. It was a great experience. I'll stop.
Oh, thank you so much, Jill. That was amazing, amazing. Well, we all want to have one, that's for sure. Before we run out of time, I do have a very short something from the archives I want to share. I'm going to force a few of you who can stay to the end to watch it. But if you have any questions, does anyone have any questions that they want to pose to the panelists? If you want to put it in the chat. Obviously we've heard some themes, about finding that collaborator, being very intentional around planning that proposal. Anything else that anybody wanted to ask the panelists, or that perhaps the panelists are thinking of now that they want to add? You're welcome to do that too.
One line.
Yeah.
When I went just to do research. I've been teaching for 25 years, teaching at Hunter. So you're teaching 1,000. What? I don't want to move somewhere and teach. That's me. So, but for New Zealand, you could do just research, or you could do research and teaching. Every country, again, so if you want to do research and teaching, that's a way to filter as well. Or if you just want to do research, maybe some countries have it, some countries don't. But you
Yes.
do have a choice in that way as well.
Yeah, good point. On those catalogs of awards, you'll be able to see which is a combo, which is one or the other, and to kind of think through, what situation you'd like to be in. Anita, I see your hands up. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to add on to what Jill said, that there are also awards left over after the process. If there's not a match between all the available awards and scholars, there is a list you can look up later in the process and apply for.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I'm just thinking about how much support there is for Hunter College students. You probably know Stephen Lassonde, he's fantastic. And we are now a top producer of Fulbrights for students. But I think we have room to grow in terms of faculty going. And an event like this, I think, is so critical. It really inspires us. It informs us. I mean, I want to thank everyone tremendously for taking this time. And in terms of the question in the chat, in that catalog of awards link, which let me just repost that real quick. It will say one of each country has a tab, and it will say whether a letter of invitation is required or it's just recommended. Or some places don't allow you to have a host institution that specifies, you. So each country will have its own rules and regulations. And one of the things that I've noticed is there are just tons of webinars and information sessions constantly available from Fulbright. I've attended a number of them. And you always get a slightly, they are saying a certain script, but you sometimes do, just by the questions that come up, get a little insight. Like Jill was mentioning, some countries just have a lot more, and some countries are a little, very popular. Some are maybe, because if you're really open to any place, those are things to kind of keep in mind. I think those are very, very helpful. So in our last couple of minutes, I'm going to force you all to watch just 2 minutes of a video when I was an adjunct at Hunter, when I first started, this was like 2003, because I've been at Hunter almost 20 years. My dad was a Civil War historian, and he had done a Fulbright in Italy. He taught at the University of Genoa when I was about 9 years old, and I lived in Genoa that year. Went to school, international school there. I had no idea like what the heck, we were doing there, of course. And it was kind of like what Spiro was talking about. I mean, the friends that my dad made are lifelong friends. And in fact, I took my children to Italy. We'd been to Italy, but we went to Genoa and we visited with Nando, who had been like a doctoral student at the time, who's now a professor. And in Italy, it takes you like 45 years to become a professor. So he was finally a professor. He studies the Beatles. That's his area. But anyway, it was really kind of like a neat kind of full circle. But my dad left academia a long time ago, and he became a documentary filmmaker. He's now retired. But one of his gigs or his projects was the Fulbright Commission was making a video about Fulbright. And then this is like in early 2000s. And my dad just got hired to do one. And he got to pick 3 institutions around the US that had to be, very different, to profile students and faculty. So I was working at Hunter. I'm like, Dad, you got to come to Hunter, and do a video here. So he did. So this is the clip from this video. And you're going to see me like 60 pounds skinnier and 20 years younger. So I'm just going to show it for a second. It's kind of inspirational, with the idea of saying, Hunter has so much to offer. And I think that I think we should all just keep pushing for Fulbright, keep pushing for our students, of course, but also us, as faculty. As we've heard, these are just life-changing experiences. All right, so hopefully the sound is going to work. Here we go.
And Lauren might say, that really sounds like a listening activity.
Hunter College is a large public urban university. We have about 23,000 students. It's a very diverse student population. It is a majority minority institution.
So I applied for a Fulbright and I went to Kingston, Jamaica. I was there from 2009 to 2010, piloting a psychosocial support program for children with HIV and AIDS. A lot of the fear about applying to the Fulbright was almost that it was hubris, like who am I to think that I can get a Fulbright, and so a lot of the times you just close doors for yourself. And luckily I had the encouragement of people to say, look, scholarships are out there, fellowships are out there for people to take them. The lasting effects of my Fulbright on me personally, I had always been passionate about research, but I think it really impressed upon me the need to participate in global health on a wider scale.
Poet Mina Alexander brought her wider world to her Fulbright experience and found herself translating between cultures in unexpected ways.
I went to India to teach. I had one of the teaching Fulbrights. And so when people would say, well, what kind of campus do you work on? And I would say, well, the college I work on sits on top of a subway station. And I said, well, it's a bit like the crossroads of the world because we have so many immigrant students here. I think this is the very best that the United States of America can do in terms of reaching out to different parts of the world. The access to education and to ideas and to culture. I think people are genuinely curious.
It's that curiosity about the world, whether in the arts or languages, politics or the sciences, that leads thousands of students, scholars, and other professionals to explore the world through Fulbright grants. The U.S.-Argentina exchange is among the oldest.
I'm going to stop there. Let me stop sharing. Isn't that great? I do make myself cry a little bit. But, it's a beautiful thing to that we shouldn't have, like, in a way, I think we're like that student, that we can't get these things, or we're not, we don't have enough support, I think, to do these things. So I'm emotional. I'm just so impressed with all of you. Spiro, Terrie, Marnia, Jill, Anita, you are wonderful role models for us. And hopefully we're going to have another event like this maybe next year. Maybe we need a little bit, we'll get a longer workshop put together so that we can really support each other a little bit more in the work. So I want to thank everyone so much, all of you who've been here as well as participants. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and thanks so much to our panelists.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye to everyone.
Thank you.